only thing that you can do now is pray to the macaron gods that these work out. Today we're gonna make pistachio macarons with a raspberry cream cheese filling. Basically every step, I'm gonna say this is the most important step of macaron making, but basically every single step is the most important step. First off, you can't really do this without a kitchen scale. Okay, so you need a kitchen scale to really carefully measure out all your ingredients. So whatever your recipe is, you want equal parts of almond flour and powdered sugar. So I'm gonna start with there. So for my recipe, we use 130 grams of each. So close. Okay, 131, so I have to go, 132, I have to go take a couple out. That's how precise you gotta be. Okay, 130 grams. And then we're gonna do 130 grams of powdered sugar. So I'm just gonna use the same container. 258, 259, 260. Okay, I'm gonna set this aside. Next, I'm going to need 90 grams of granulated sugar. There's a lot of sugar in these cookies. That's why I like them. Okay, too much. So I measured out 30 grams of whole pistachios. These are roasted and salted. We're just gonna put these in the food processor and blend them until they're like a fine powder. See how this goes. Now we need 100 grams of egg whites. Typically about 3 eggs, so I just start and then I can take out some egg whites if I need to. I always have a container nearby that I can put my yolks in if you want to make an omelet or scrambled eggs, or my chocolate chip cookies call for yolks. That's a good thing to pair up. So just separate your eggs from your whites. It's really important you can't have any yolk in here, so if you do, start over. That's why it's good to do one at a time. If you have yolk in your meringue, it will not whip up. It won't go anywhere. Try to be super diligent. Okay, very good. Now we're done. Some equipment that you're gonna need is 2 baking sheets, and I like to use silicone mats, so I put those on mine. I've also done it with parchment paper before, whatever your preference is. These seemed to work really good last time, so I'm gonna stick with that this time. And then you wanna have just a hand mixer. I think it's more reliable than your like KitchenAid mixer because you can really feel and look at when your egg whites are at stiff peaks when you need to stop. And then a food processor. You're gonna need your food processor to process your almond flour and your powdered sugar just to make sure it's super fine before you put it through the sifter. We're gonna put our already measured almond flour and powdered sugar in the food processor. This part can get a little messy. My husband can tell you that. And you need to buy like the finely ground almond flour, but there's still a little bit of chunks, and so you always want to double process it. Get it in there as best as you can. Same thing, we're gonna do it on the pulse. All right, once you're confident that it's well ground, you are going to run it through your sifter. There's gonna be some chunks that are left behind. That's fine, don't worry about them. They're probably about a tablespoon is like enough that you can just toss it. If it's more than that, you might wanna add some more ingredients. So just add it in chunks because it doesn't all fit in there. And then sift it through. So that stuff at the end, don't worry about it, just leave it there. Some people process their stuff or go through the sifter twice. I haven't found that necessary, but you can if you want. Sometimes it sticks in there. So like I said, you'll have some of these big chunks left. Just toss them in the garbage. This recipe calls for aged egg whites. A lot of times egg whites are aged by sitting them on the counter for 24 to 48 hours, which is gross. So I have a little trick that I use for mine. I put them in the microwave at 50% power for 10 seconds, and that equals the same thing. I'm gonna take the egg whites, bring them over to the microwave here. We're gonna set to a cook power of 50%, and we're gonna go for 10 seconds. We don't wanna cook the egg whites, we just want them to dry out a little bit. So they don't really look any different. That's good, that's what they're supposed to do. Now for the fun part. So what we're gonna do, I'll just walk you through because once the blender starts, you probably won't be able to hear me. I'm gonna put our aged egg whites in the large bowl, and I'm gonna whisk them until they get like a little bit opaque and frothy, and then that's when we're gonna go ahead and add our cream of tartar. Once that's mixed in and whipped up a little bit, we'll gradually add our granulated sugar, and then I'm gonna whisk it until it hits stiff peaks. It's impossible to know unless you check when you're at stiff peaks, so you'll see me take out the whisk a lot, check the consistency, and then keep whisking if it's not where I want it at. All right, you can see these are nice and frosty and no longer see-through. So that means it's time to add your cream of tartar. It's just 1/8 of a teaspoon, so just a very small amount. Just helps to stabilize your egg whites. If soft peaks form, you can start adding your sugar in. Increment 2. So that is a soft peak. If you pull up your egg whites and your white flips all the way down, those are soft. You got to keep going. Still soft. Getting better. Couple more seconds. So there, it holds. So I'm gonna go ahead, since it's St. Patrick's Day coming up on Tuesday, and add a little bit of green food coloring to go with our pistachio flavor. So I use the gel food coloring. If you use liquid, it messes up with the consistency too much. So I start with 2 drops, and then you can add more if you want. I think I'm gonna do 1 more drop just because when you bake it, it bakes out a little bit. And you're gonna add all that almond flour mixture too, which will lighten it up. I like to use this Wilton tip. I think it's the 1A tip. It's a wide, round tip. Oh no, 2A. And when I put my mixture in here, I like to fold it over a big bowl or a big cup. I'll fold it over, and then I'll be able to spoon my meringue in here. This is another one of those most important parts, but actually might be the most important. So what I like to do is fold in my almond mixture in 3 increments. So I do a third and then fold for a while, a third and then a third. You do not want to overmix the batter. If you overmix the batter, it becomes really thin and it won't rise in the oven. I'm gonna start with 1/3, about 1/3. And I like to go around in a circle and then through. Circle, through. And you're just folding gently. You want to whip some air out of the meringue to incorporate the flour in there, but you don't want to whip too much air out. Very gently pushing against the side of the bowl. Okay, once that's just incorporated, you don't want to over whip it. Mix the second, third, and same process around and through. Now the last part. Once you have it all incorporated, you're only gonna mix until one of 2 things. You can pick it up and you wanna be able to write a figure 8. I know this isn't ready yet, so it'll break. See how it broke there before I was able to make my ribbon? It needs more mixing. The other way you can tell is if you pick up your thing and you pour it, it should ribbon back on itself. So we still obviously need to mix more. Check it every so often though, you don't wanna overmix. Getting closer, starting to ribbon on itself. Yep, a couple more. Let's see if we can draw the 8. Not quite. Close. There we go. So I'm gonna do about 3 more. Now it's ribboning back on itself. Yep. All right, we're all good to go. Stop mixing there. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and spoon in here. You wanna not beat the batter as you're going because it's perfectly mixed right now. So just try to let it spoon in there. without mixing it around. How big I pipe mine, I usually have about 40 individual cookies, which is about 20 sandwich cookies. You can half the recipe or double it if you want more, but this is the typical number I get. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start piping. So I'm gonna do little blobs and up. You wanna leave about 1 inch in between your macarons. Give them a little room to spread. They don't spread too much, but try to make them similar size and shape. That'll be easier for sandwiching them after. There are templates that you can print out online if you want. I'm not that picky about it. I just go by look. Okay, I'm gonna swap and go to number 2. It's okay if you notice air bubbles right now, we're gonna tap them out. Okay, just gently tap, 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 and then I flip the pan, tap, tap, tap. That's all I do, 6. I found if you over tap them, they don't rise as well either. Now, another most important part. You're gonna let these sit on the counter at room temperature for up to 1 hour. When I touch them right now, they'd be super sticky and stick to my finger. I wanna wait to bake them until they're dry to the touch. Depends on humidity level, but usually up to 1 hour is about right. So I'll let them sit here. I'll come back in about 45 minutes and check on them. I almost forgot. These are for St. Patrick's Day. Part of the green is the pistachios that we mixed earlier. So what I'm gonna do is sprinkle a little bit over the top of each macaron. And you can just bake them like this. Do this while it's wet. Right after you piped them. So once you get all the pistachios sprinkled on, one of the most important parts is to let these macarons dry. It depends on the humidity level, but usually takes about up to 1 hour. So we're just gonna let these sit on the counter, and then once they're dry to the touch, then we will be ready to bake them. Okay, so it's been 50 minutes, and as you can see, they're dry to the touch. So you wanna be able to rub your finger across them, and then no residue comes away. So I'm gonna go ahead and bake these in the oven. We want to bake at a temperature of 300. This is why it's nice to have an oven thermometer. I have to have my temperature set at 320 on the oven in order to get my oven thermometer to read 100 or 300. So I'm going to go ahead and bake these one at a time. I'm going to set them for 18 minutes. That's how usually my oven takes, but anywhere between 15 and 20. Macarons are baking, and the only thing that you can do now is pray to the macaron gods that these work out. Okay, so the timer went off. It's been 18 minutes. We're gonna check if they're done. Oh, they look gorgeous. Look at how perfect. All right, so what you wanna do is hit this from the side and see if it moves. If it jiggles just a tiny bit like that, we're gonna give it another minute. You don't want it to really move on the foot. So if you're pushing it and the foot, it's like squishing off the foot a little bit, give it another minute. All right, so it's been another couple minutes. We're gonna check them again. I'm just gonna push. Good, see the feet, it doesn't move at all this time. Out they come. Perfect macaron. Okay, so once they're out of the oven, we need to leave them on the tray. I put them on a wire rack so it can cool a lot easier, but leave them out in room temperature until they're completely cooled, and then you can peel them off the parchment paper. Now that these are cooled, you can go ahead and take them off the pan. So these ones, sometimes they stick a little bit. You usually just have to roll like them on the parchment paper a little bit. And then look, this is how they should look. Not hollow, not cracked. Have these nice little feet puffed up on the edge and not browned. Until I make the buttercream, I'm gonna store them in an airtight container. You could make the buttercream right now if you want to. I'm gonna wait a little bit. So I'm gonna store these in the fridge until I make the buttercream. Now these are something you should be proud of. Gorgeous macarons. Off to my apocalypse fridge. So we're gonna make our raspberry buttercream to go in the middle of our pistachio macaron. Start with 1/4 cup of butter, it's half a stick, and 3 ounces of cream cheese. I'm gonna pop this in the microwave for about 15 seconds. Now that this is softened, we're going to whisk it together so it's creamy. For the raspberries, I just took some frozen raspberries, about half a cup, and I thawed them in the microwave. So we're gonna add these to our blender, and we're gonna pulse these up into a puree. Perfect. Some people don't mind the seeds in the raspberry stuff, but my husband and me like the frosting a little bit smoother consistency, so I'm just gonna strain the seeds out. We're just gonna take our mesh strainer again, and we're gonna put the raspberries through over a bowl to catch all our goodness, and then just press it through. So this will strain out the raspberry seeds from the puree that we want. Make sure to scrape the bottom of your bowl or of your strainer, because a lot of the juice and pulp gets stuck under there. We want to get every drop we can. Now you're gonna add the raspberry puree back into your cream cheese and butter mixture. Give that a good little mix. Add 2 cups of powdered sugar, maybe 1.5. We'll start there. And then mix that together. And actually, I think that's the perfect consistency, so I'm not gonna add any more powdered sugar. I'm just gonna finish it off by adding like 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, just to make all the flavors pop. Give that a good mix. And you're ready to fill your macarons. After tasting it, I decided it needs a little pop of more flavor, so I'm gonna add a tiny bit of lemon juice. I do it in the cap first so I don't accidentally dump anything. A couple drops. Give that a good mix. Alright, looks good. So I'm gonna put the frosting in a piping bag. I just cut off the end of this time. I didn't put a piping tip in there, which will be just fine. So you're gonna try to pick ones that are the same shape and size to sandwich with. So you start with a cookie, pipe some frosting in the middle, another cookie, sandwich. Beautiful. Once they're in the fridge, they'll set up a little bit more. Continue just keeping piping until we've done all of our sandwich cookies. That's a lot. Probably don't need that much. Haha, that's a thick boy. That's better.